So let's take a multiplication problem and look at several different ways of solving it. So here's the problem. Melissa has a box of crayons and she wants to know how many are in the box. There are 4 rows and each row has 8 crayons. How many crayons are in Melissa's box? So first, let's try using an open number line. Okay, so if we've got a box of crayons and it's got 4 rows of 8, and that's kind of like saying it's got 4 groups of 8, or we could also just say that as 4 times 8. Okay? So really we're dealing with a multiplication problem here. So we're going to start by drawing an open number line. Okay? And really open number line just means you're not going to go up by ones for each tick. Okay? You're just going to keep it open, and that allows you a little more freedom as you're working through it. Alright, so we said that the problem is basically 4 times 8. So in other words, we need to do 4 jumps, and each jump is going to be 8. So we're going to start at 0, and then we're going to go over 4 jumps of 8. So there's 1 jump of 8, 2 jumps of 8, 3 jumps of 8, and finally 4 jumps of 8. So again, what you're really doing here is repeated addition. Okay, you're adding 8 repeatedly, or 4 times. So from 0 to 8 would give me 8. I add another 8, that would give me 16. I add another 8, that would get me to 24. And finally, one more at 8 would get me to 32. So the answer to this problem of 4 times 8 is 32. Okay, and that's how you would solve it using an open number line. Okay, so now let's try using a ratio table to solve the same problem. Again, we know that we're working with 4 times 8. So our ratio table is set up so that on the left side we have rows of crayons, and on the right side we have number of crayons. So we know that if we have 1 row, we already said that each row has 8, so 1 row would be 8 crayons. 2 rows would be a total of 16 crayons. Now if I wanted to, I could just keep going down to 4, but the purpose of a ratio table is to allow you to sort of jump around without necessarily having to go through each step. So as you see patterns, you can kind of jump ahead. So for instance, I see that to get from 2 to 4, I could just double it, right? So 2 doubled, or 2 times 2 is 4. So if I'm doubling the row of crayons, the rows of crayons, then I'm also going to have to double the number of crayons that are in 2 rows. So I doubled 2 to get 4, so now I've got to double 16 to get me the total, which is 32. Okay, so, and that's my answer. 4 rows of 8, or 4 times 8, would give me 32 crayons. Okay, so now we're going to use a tile array to solve the same problem. Again, we're dealing with 4 times 8. So what we're going to do, and this is more like a visual representation of the problem, we've got 4 rows and then we've got 8 crayons in each row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so 4 rows and then 8 in each row. Okay, and then once we have that, finish drawing this. Okay, and then we can just count them up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. So just like we said, 4 times 8 equals 32. Finally, we're going to use an area model to solve the problem. Again, we're dealing with 4 times 8. So those just become the dimensions of essentially a rectangle. Times 8. And this is really just like the array. You've just kind of simplified it. And the reason this is nice, so once you set it up like this, as long as you know your multiplication facts, you know 4 times 8 is 32. Okay. Now the reason this comes in handy is, let's say we change the problem to Melissa now has 2 boxes of crayons. How many does she have altogether? Well, you know 1 box of crayons is 4 times 8, so I can just add another one, and then it's another 32. So if she had 2 boxes of crayons, it'd just be 32 and 32, which would be 64. So that would be an area model, and that's going to come in handy also as we get to more complicated multiplication problems. We'll be using this a lot. So now, kind of back away and see that all the 4 different strategies that we just used. That's the great thing about math, is there's always more than one way to get to the answer of the problem. And so we've just discussed 4 different strategies that you could use if you were given a multiplication problem. So again, we started with the open number line, and then we moved to the ratio table. Then we went here and did the array, and then finally we used the area model. So 4 different strategies, and all of them help you get to the answer. So use the one that works best for you.